Sometimes it can be unclear which ending is canonical in an installment of a long-running series. Sometimes none of them are, and sometimes all of them are. Fighting games, RPGs, and survival horror games are often the most ambiguous in this regard. I've discussed how multiple endings are approached by sequels in an older Line Through Time episode, so check that one out if you want to know more. In this video, I'll be discussing Resident Evil's endings and how things can be unclear and even change down the line. So let's go back to the beginning and see if we can untangle this yarn ball of a canon. Welcome to Cannonball. The original Resident Evil and its remake have a pretty simple structure. You begin the game by selecting either Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine. Both characters have an exclusive support character and have an opportunity to rescue the other player character from a prison cell. The support character can die either before entering the lab or during the final fight on the roof, and the other PC can be ignored, leaving us with 7 outcomes for the survivors. There are also permutations where the mansion doesn't explode if the support character didn't make it to the lab. Canonically, all 4 characters survive, as noted in a file in the second game, as well as all 4 making appearances in subsequent titles. But this outcome is not attainable in the original game, the remake, or even the Umbrella Chronicles retelling, which left out Barry entirely and adapted Chris's scenario. Personally, I like to imagine that Wesker, in his retelling of the tale, purposefully leaves Barry out to cover up how his attempt to blackmail Barry ultimately failed. The second game is structured a little differently. You choose between Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield and then play the parallel events as the other character after finishing the A scenario. The starting character determines which direction the car is facing when it crashes, which determines who gets out on which side and who takes which route to get to the RPD. The story plays out differently based on who goes which way, including, notably, the supposed cause of death of Ada Wong. In Leon A. Claire B, she is shot by Annette Birkin and falls down a shaft. In Claire A. Leon B, she is instead smashed into a computer console by Mr. X. Code Veronica brought with it Wesker's report, a video recap of the first 3 games narrated by Wesker himself. When discussing Ada's fate, Leon A is shown. This version of events was also the basis of S.D. Perry's 1999 novelization of the game. This suggests that Capcom considered Leon A. Claire B canonical, but the Umbrella Chronicles then opens Ada's scenario with artwork of Leon cradling her in his arms, which only occurs in the B scenario. The in-game file on the events of the game follows Claire A. Leon B, as do Darkside Chronicles and Operation Raccoon City. My guess as to why this happened is that because Leon's disc was labelled as Disc 1, most players would have defaulted to Leon first, which would make Leon A. Claire B the mental image of RE2's events, which could also account for Chris's RE1 scenario holding more weight in the Umbrella Chronicles than Jill's. But they later realised that moments like Ada giving the rocket launchers to Leon made a lot more sense than to Claire, as did Ada surviving being smashed into a console instead of falling into a chasm. I'll save discussion of the 2019 remake until the end for those that want to play the game blind.
I don't do spoilers.
Resident Evil 3 only has one scenario, but the player is given choices at certain points in the game which can determine the route they take and the order of events. Towards the end, one of these decisions determines the fate of Nikolai. In one scenario, he is killed by Nemesis, allowing Jill and Carlos to escape the city via helicopter. In the other, he takes the chopper himself, but Jill and Carlos are picked up by another chopper piloted by Barry. A file in Resident Evil Survivor confirms Nikolai to have survived, and the chopper is shown with another pilot in the Umbrella Chronicles, but once again, Salty Wesker refuses to acknowledge Barry whatsoever. Resident Evil Outbreak features 40 different endings based on the fates of the 8 main characters. These are: the character is cured of the T-virus and has a spur sample for mass production, they're cured but don't have the spur, they're not cured and turn into a zombie, and a handful of special endings for certain pairs of survivors not being cured. Its sequel, Outbreak File 2, while using the same characters, has different scenarios with a different escape method. There is a bad epilogue where the player fails to save the scientist Linda, which suggests the virus spreads worldwide. Each character has a dedicated good ending if they do manage to save her though. I don't know which of the 2 games is considered canonical, probably the most recent one, but the only character currently confirmed to have survived is Alyssa Ashcroft, who wrote an article on the disappearances in Dulvey, Louisiana a year before RE7. In the Darkside Chronicles' Operation Javier scenario, Manuela Hidalgo uses her T. Veronica infected fiery blood to assist Leon and Krauser in the final battle with her mutated father. If the battle lasts more than 10 minutes, Manuela loses too much blood and dies. If the battle takes less than 10 minutes, Manuela lives. The final scenario, replaying the final 2 stages with Krauser's inner thoughts being heard, yields an alternate version of the ending cutscene to foreshadow Krauser's role in RE4. It's based on the good ending, supporting that as canonical. Operation Operation Raccoon City, being non-canon, had the potential to allow the player to massively disrupt the canon storyline in their interactions with the established characters, but it all boils down to one decision at the end, a la Mass Effect 3. When the team catches up to Leon, each member gets to choose whether to try and kill him and Claire to get back into Umbrella's good graces after Umbrella betrayed them for no reason, or they can logically yet predictably side with Leon and let them go as a fuck you to Umbrella. The two sides then fight to the death to determine the incredibly limp outcome. I only bring this game up because someone would complain if I didn't, and it's a good way to pad out the video to tech weight. Revelations 2 has two endings based around the development of Moira Burton. Each episode is played first as Claire and Moira, then as Barry and Natalia 6 months later. During the boss fight in Claire's portion of episode 3, Claire is pinned down and struggles to reach her gun, so Moira, who is afraid of guns, has to get to it for her. If Claire gets to it first, she finishes the boss, and then Moira will give in to her fear in episode 4 and die, allowing Alex Wesker to take over Natalia's body in the bad ending. If Moira gets the gun and overcomes her fear, she lives long enough to be saved by Evgeny, allowing her to intervene in Barry's final battle and lead to Alex's death in the good ending. A later bonus episode focused on Moira during the 6 months between Claire and Barry's sections, confirming that the good ending is canon. Resident Evil 7 teaser demo beginning hour sounds like a Kingdom Hearts game. It's apparently considered canon despite changes to the environment and reuse of certain events. The first 6 endings, yes, have the unnamed protagonist getting ambushed by Jack Baker and knocked unconscious. The other 2 endings require the player to obtain the window key for the attic. If the player is hit by the moulded enemy in the process, they will collapse as the infection takes hold. If not, they escape and try to report the incident, but the cops think the guy's on LSD. This ending is apparently considered the true ending. The final game also has an alternate ending, I guess. Protagonist Ethan Winters finally finds his missing wife Mia after 3 years. He retrieves the ingredients for Zoe Baker to create a cure to the virus all 3 are infected with. Only 2 samples are created, and Ethan has to use one on Jack Baker to kill him, leaving only one left. The game conveniently forgets that Ethan is also infected, so that the player has to choose between Ethan's wife and a woman he barely knows. Choosing Mia leaves Zoe shocked and heartbroken, as if she somehow expected him to save her over his wife. After a brief section as Mia, Ethan puts an end to Evelyn, the source of the virus, and he and Mia are evacuated by Chris. If the player saves Zoe for some reason, Evelyn just calcifies her anyway, killing her despite her being cured. And then after her section, Mia is unable to resist Evelyn's influence and Ethan is forced to kill her. Ethan then kills Evelyn and escapes alone. It really feels like the bad ending was included for the sake of having a bad ending without any logic put into anything that happens in it. The later End of Zoe DLC depicts Zoe alone in the woods and later receiving a call from Ethan confirming the Mia ending, because of course that's the canonical ending. Why would he ever choose Zoe? I should make a video about this. RE7's Daughters DLC follows Zoe right after Evelyn is brought into the Baker household. Playing normally and trying to escape via the garage leads to Zoe being beaten by her mind-controlled parents, and the ending text makes it clear that this is not the true path. Going off the beaten path to find the emblem pieces to unlock the back door allows Zoe to enter the trailer where Mia is resting, only to be cornered by Evelyn. This time the text confirms that this is what happened, even if Zoe really didn't have a reason to search hidden places for the emblem pieces. And finally, the RE2 remake again has A and B scenarios, kind of, but it's deceptive. It actually falls somewhere in between RE1 and RE2 structures. There's very little continuity between an A scenario and its corresponding B scenario, with both playing out largely the same. And very little actually changes between one character's A and B scenarios, with the most significant plot divergence being that A has them meet Marvin, while B has them fight the final boss. The actual plot of this version is an amalgamation of all prior scenarios. For example, Ada's supposed death comes from Leon A, but Leon then kills Mr. X like in Leon B. Sherry is infected with the G embryo as in Claire A, but also witnesses her mother's death a la Claire B. It even draws a little on Darkside Chronicles, as G. Birkin is dealt with by decoupling the train cars and letting the explosion catch up to him, instead of stopping the entire train and running the rest of the way as in the original. As I discussed in the Align Through Time episode on game remakes typically replace the original in the canon, and this is undoubtedly going to be the case here. Like how newer depictions of RE1 draw on the remake rather than the original, I can't see them using older RE2 designs in flashbacks or the original location layouts in 3make. As for which of this game's scenarios is now supplanting the original in the canon, I'm going to guess it's a combination of Leon's first run and Claire's second. It makes more sense for the cop to be the one to investigate the petrol station incident than the college student. Likewise, Leon's relationship with Marvin and attempt to aid the officers feel more appropriate than Claire having that role, and having Claire defeat Birkin at the end, giving each hero one antagonist to destroy, fixes how weirdly unbalanced the A and B scenarios were in the original. So as you can see, the series runs the gamut of different approaches to multiple endings games can take. One is clearly the true canon, one is canon but it changes later, it's ambiguous, multiple are canon at once, or none of them are canon. It also showcases how endings can be the logical result of the actions and motivations of the character, or just disregard that gay shit and do whatever because who needs logic or consistency, am I right my fellow MK writers? I will never not be bitter. If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you.